Today's episode of the Stall Side Podcast was brought to you by Rood Riddle Veterinary Pharmacy.
Hey, Bart, how's it going?
It's good. It's my favorite time of year. I love it. I'm happy.
Really? Why is this your favorite time of year?
Just things changing. It's getting, a little green out there.
Yeah.
I don't love winter.
Yeah, it's an acquired taste, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, we'll leave that one to the polar bears. Interesting guest on the show today.
Probably the most interesting we've ever had, I have to admit. Why don't you tell me about our guest?
Well, your guest, obviously, this week is actually very modest by the sound of it, and actually doesn't self-promote themselves at all.
Absolutely not. No, this is a very humble guest.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, salt of the earth, this man, and we all wish we could be him. He's sort of like James Bond. We all wish we could be him.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good to hear.
So on Stall Side this week, we're going to have one of the most illustrious, intelligent, good-looking, and engaging guests that we've ever had.
Wow. I'm excited.
For those of you on the video cast, you'll actually notice that I'm sitting here by myself. It turns out that my illustrious co-host, Dr. Bart Barber, is actually today's guest. Bart.
Nice to be on the show with you. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, it's good to see you on the other side of the table.
It's different being over here for sure.
Yeah, it's sort of not far enough away, but we'll just bear it as good as we can.
I don't know where else that, I've got to look at you. When I'm sitting over there, I can look around the room, whatever, but here it's awkward if I'm not looking at you.
Yeah,
so.
Here I have to feign interest, and it's actually going to be really difficult.
I'm not going to be able to, my mind can't wander today.
Yeah, there you go. So, Bart, tell us a bit about yourself.
Okay, so I was... I grew up on a cattle ranch in Ryrie, Idaho, on the banks of the South Fork of the Snake River. It was a great place to be from, great place to grow up. My dad was a farmer and a cowboy. My grandpa on both sides were cowboys, and it was a great way to grow up. I remember one of my first earliest memories was, they'd were working cows and they had the horses saddled, and I loved that time. You could jump on the horses and ride around, and we were headed to a birthday party. We're going swimming, eating pizza, something that all kids love. And I can remember being so torn because that horse was saddled up, tied to the tree, and I wanted to stay there and ride that horse rather than go to this birthday party. And so early on, I grew up having a love for the horse. We had a neighbor that introduced us to horse racing. In fact, I'm going to grab this because I grew up, this neighbor introduced us to horse racing, and we raced quarter horses, but we chariot raced. And, there's a picture right over there that I keep in my office. And what's special about that is that's my team winning, and I kicked my dad's butt that day.
So basically, you grew up like Ben-Hur, basically.
Oh yeah, it was a lot of fun.
It was like a sword and sandals epic every day. Absolutely,
yeah. We had we had a bunch of foals that we messed with all the time, weanlings, and we broke them early, and so there were always some horses around the cows, and anyway, that was the chariot racing was, I was very competitive when I was a kid, involved in athletics. And then once I graduated high school, that was the one competitive thing that I could do that really mattered. And so it was a lot of fun. And so I grew a love of horse racing from that time. So
what got you into equine veterinary medicine? It sounds like you had the animal bent, but with your background, what turned you to the horses?
So, about the time I graduated high school, sat down and had a pretty serious conversation with my dad. I loved the farming. I loved to be around the cattle. And, he just said, I'm the last generation that's going to own this farm. You're going to college. And so it's a little bit irritating because now my brother and his kids are all farming with my dad. I think there might have been, maybe he just had his favorite and was trying to get rid of me. But
I was sort of going to point that out, Bart, but I didn't be the one to tell you. But seeing you've actually already self-recognized that, we can talk about it.
Yeah. So anyway, I thought veterinary medicine was the closest thing I could do to staying close to. And honestly, I intended to. Be like the veterinarians that were around our farm, the guys that did cows, that did horses, just to have a mixed large animal practice. My dad had a high school classmate, Kelly Hall, that was working in the Boise area. I got to spend a lot of time with him in college, one of my mentors. And, I really expected to have a practice like him. And then I went away and, for my preceptorship, when I was in vet school, I visited Lloyd Kloppy, who was a great mentor. And then I go, oh, this is the type of practice I want. So he had a repro practice in, kind of a rural Arizona area. he was practicing at a high level, and I go, yeah, this is what I want to do.
Yeah, I met Lloyd a couple of times. Absolute gentleman, just master of his craft, and he's sorely missed.
Yeah, we lost Lloyd, in the last several months here, and he was a great person.
Yeah.
He was a good mentor, and he took in a lot of students. There was a lot of there's a lot of people here that have been through Lloyd's practice.
So where'd you go to vet school?
So I went to Washington State. That was, Idaho doesn't have a vet school, so I was able to go to Washington State. It was a great school. I had some great mentors there, some fun surgeons, and Dr. Schneider, who Dr. Bramlage talked a little bit about. He was a lot of fun for me. He was mean, but he was fair because he was mean to everybody.
As long as he's consistent.
He held you to a very high standard, and he didn't tolerate, not knowing or not trying. And so I did learn a lot from him. Had a lot of fun there. That's where I met Dr. Hopper. Dr. Hopper was doing a residency there at the time. Kobe Richter had just got done with a resident or an internship at Rood Riddle, and then she'd gone on to she was at Washington State at the time. So I had some people that I was able to talk to. So I was walking across the parking lot one day, and our thermogenologist had just gotten his mail, and I think he was trying to get rid of this stuff. He goes, "Hey, Barber, come here," and he handed me a flyer for a internship at Rood Riddle. They were doing their first ever ambulatory internship, and he said, "I really think you ought to apply for this." And up until that moment, I'd never considered applying for an internship. It just wasn't something I was going to do. And it worked perfect because, here's not your traditional hospital internship, which I wasn't really interested in, but here was an ambulatory internship doing some of the stuff that I wanted to do. And I had these people from Rood Riddle surrounding me who go, "Gosh, this is a great hospital. It's a great place to be." And so, it worked out. So I went to Kobe, Richter, Scott Hopper, and then one of our others, I think Claude Regal, maybe Dr. Schneider, wrote in a letter. I asked them to write letters. And then we get up against the deadline, and I hadn't turned in my application. And I go, "Oh, crap." And so I checked with Hopper. I go, "Hey, have you written that letter yet?" And he goes, "No." Checked with Dr. Regal, "Have you written that letter yet?" And he goes, "No." And I go, "Okay, one more." And I asked Kobe Richter, I said, "Hey, have you written your letter?" And she goes, yeah, it's in. And I thought, well, if she's gone to that effort, then I better apply.
I see a pattern here, Bart. Your dad gets you off the farm, and all your mentors wanted you to leave the state.
Yeah. No, it's okay. It's okay. I'm all right with that. I get it.
Yeah. So that's how you got to Rood Riddle. Basically, it was the place that everybody wanted to send you as fast as they could. So talk about life here, how it was when you started, and how you've worked your way through.
I was married at the time, had 2 kids. Actually, my daughter Ashton, I had her in class with me one day. She was. No, he was my old. Anyway, one of the kids had him in parasitology.
We might have to cut this part.
No, that's okay. They were little. It was Mackenzie. Anyway, she pooped her diaper, and it ended up in her hair.
You're definitely going to have to cut it now.
So you can cut that. I don't care. She's good.
You don't care about Mackenzie,
right? She's already married.
There you go.
So it was good. So I had 2 kids in tow, and my wife, she supported me all the way through. From undergrad, I sold used cars in undergrad. It was great because I could study. Somebody comes in and go out, sell them a used car, come back, study some more. Had a boss there that was great to me, but I had this wife who supported me, very talented accountant. And she had a really good job in Boise where I was going to my undergrad. And then when we went to Washington State, had another great job that she left. So she sacrificed a lot to get me where I wanted to go. She just towed along with me, and has supported me all the way through. But I had these 2 kids with me. Got here, did an internship. I'll never forget my first day. Scott Allsweed dropped me off, and so I pull out, and he just drops me off at this barn, and he goes, he said, "There'll be some guy in a pink truck come along later and pick you up." And that's when Pierce was driving his pink Suburban or Tahoe, whatever it was, and I'm sitting on my lunchbox in front of this barn, and this he was a character, but he came up and he goes, "What are you doing here?" And I go, well, I'm a veterinarian. He goes, well, we don't need another vet around here. This is Scotty P country, baby. We don't need you. I said, I think that's who I'm waiting for. And he goes, oh, you're welcome to wait then. But Scott Pierce was an incredible mentor for a lot of reasons. One, he gave me confidence in myself. He made me believe in myself, because you always, and where you're at when you start, there's all these people around you who are smarter than you. And you're so conscious of what you don't know that it's hard to. He helped me recognize what I do know and what I can accomplish, and go. Okay, here's your weak spots. Here's how you fix that, or here's how you make sure that the clients are taken care of, and can have those weak spots, and that's okay. So he was a really good mentor for me, because he let me do a lot, but he was always there to back me up and help me and keep me out of trouble.
Yeah, no, that's actually exactly what you need. You're right. You just need somebody to sort of say, this is how you get out of where you are, because we've all been right where you are.
Yep, absolutely believed in me.
Yep.
It was great. So
yeah. And so you spent some time at Rood Riddle, but your career has progressed quite a lot in the time that you've been here.
Yeah, so, I've kind of done a little bit of everything. I actually followed a lot in what Scott Pierce was doing. When I first got here, he was doing a lot of mares. And then it wasn't too long after that, he goes, okay, I'm done with the mares. This is getting too much. And he just focused on the yearling practice. But I got really lucky, because right after my internship year, Susie Shoemaker called me and said, hey, I want you to do my work. And so I was able to go out and do her vet work. And, it was incredible that she kept me, because I think our first 12 mares that we bred didn't get pregnant. And I look back and I'm looking at my going, this is just the way it works. It was just absolutely rotten luck. And she had a lot of confidence and faith in me, and stuck it out. And then things just worked out from there. But not only did that give me experience, it gave me some credibility too. And then it was interesting. It wasn't too long after that, we had the MRLS year, and Frank Taylor at Taylor Made called me and said, hey, we just had a disaster. We're losing all these foals. And we had a resident veterinarian who just quit. He said, can you just help me come up here and help me get through this? Scott Pierce kind of gave me the introduction, and I was just up there to help them get through it, get their mares bred, get done with the season, and, move on from there. I'd been there for 2 or 3 weeks, and things were going really well, and we were getting this mess cleaned up. And, Frank says, hey, jump in with me. And he offered me the job as the resident veterinarian at Taylor Made. And that was hard, because that was it was a big farm, it was a big job. It was very flattering. But I said, I appreciate that a lot. I said, but these guys, and especially Scott Pierce, have been really good for me. And I'd love to do your work, but it's going to have to be as a Rood Riddle veterinarian if I do it. And that's kind of the way things worked and ended up. There's a long story in between there, but I was able to do the work at Taylor Made, which was, it was a thrill, because some really nice horses, and I still every day I can't get over the thrill of just the quality of horses that we get to be around, and the quality of the horsemen that we get to be around. There was a time when I considered going back to Idaho or Utah, and I interviewed for a job, and really liked the guy that I was working with. I liked his family. I loved the practice. And the biggest thing that was missing was, the quality of the people that are on these farms, because you basically have your own nursing staff built right in these barns. They're so skilled. You don't worry when they're handling horses. You know when you make a treatment protocol that they're going to stick to it, and they're going to call you when they get problems. So
yeah, and in this place, because of what you described, does pull people in, but it's a bit of a pressure cooker too, in that you get your feet put to the fire, and if it's not working for you, it's not working for you, and the people that are left are the ones that you described that you really want to be around.
Yeah, and it is a bit of a pressure cooker, because there does come some pressure with working on these valuable horses, but I think I have to give kudos to the people who own these horses, because they have, for the most part, they have very realistic expectations. Now, one thing that's different about the thoroughbred world, nobody ever buys a thoroughbred expecting to lose money. They all expect to make money. And that's not the case with a lot of our equine disciplines. They know that they're going to buy horses, they're going to spend money, they're not going to get much of a return. But nobody's ever bought a thoroughbred expecting to lose money. So that there's that pressure. But at the same time, I've been very impressed that almost without exception, people are willing to lose money to make a bad financial decision to do what's right for the horse.
Yeah.
I've noticed that again and again and again, that the right thing to do financially a lot of times is to stop, but the horsemanship and taking care of the horse kicks in, and they take care of the horse and at a loss. There's always a limit for everybody.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's not strictly business. It is a little bit of a lifestyle decision and how you want to conduct yourself and how you feel about yourself, and you project that onto how you look after that horse.
Yeah, the people love the horses, and they take care of them. And like I said, the expectations are for the most part realistic. People are very rational, and you're going to get bad news. So, some things aren't always going to go right. Mares aren't always going to get pregnant. You're going to end up with disasters on x-rays that are going to kill a sale for a horse that moves a decimal point. Yeah. But I've been impressed how well people take that.
Yeah, and you started off doing a lot of reproductive work in the farm situation, but you've started to morph into sales, and you've sort of started to allude to that. So tell me about that transition.
And especially when I came along, TaylorMade's got a huge yearling population there, and so I was doing the mares in the spring and taking care of the yearlings, but then we went into sales, and I just followed those horses into sales. And when you're trying to raise a family, a lot of our veterinarians here, they kind of do one or the other. They do sales or they do mares. And I was doing both. And what that meant was the only weekends you really get off are in December, and so that just, I was, my farms were really good. I didn't work a lot of Sundays. That was kind of a rare thing. That most of the time I was able to avoid working too much on Sundays. I was able to spend time, in church with my family, and so that was good. But at the same time, there weren't too many camping trips and the weekend vacations and stuff. And so I go, okay, I've got to do something. And it was about that time that Debbie Spike Pierce became our CEO, and so there was nobody was really stepping up to take on her practice, her yearling practice. And so I thought, this is my opportunity to make a jump and give up the mares, which are really heavy on the first half of the year versus the latter half, which makes it possible for me to be here with you. So if I had a mare practice still, I would still be out.
Yeah, that's exactly right. But yeah, you do the sales thing, but also that's not your only responsibility for our group. Yeah, you're intimately involved in the pharmacy.
Oh yeah. No, certainly the pharmacy. And that was a lot of fun when that came up, and Tom Riddle was a huge supporter of it. And I said, why don't we have a pharmacy? And so a few guys opposed to it, and a few were for it. And I just said, I'd like to be involved, and it's become a great thing for us. And it's so compounding, and especially at the time we opened the pharmacy. There were less regulations then. And so we wanted to make sure that our patients were safe. And we thought, well, this is one way for us to know exactly what the processes going into these compounded medications are, is for us to do them. Yeah. And, so my charge when I took over the pharmacy was to protect the horse, protect the Rood Riddle brand. And so that's kind of the way we've set it up. And everybody downstairs here knows that, our focus and our priority is on the safety of the horse.
And I don't think a lot of people really realize just how difficult it is and how expensive it is to do things right.
Yeah, because there's, if you look at it, there's a small portion of this building that doesn't take up very much of the footprint of the building, but it's as expensive as the rest of it because of all that we put into it. To keep that room clean, and so we can make sterile compounds in there. All the training that goes on, there's a lot there's certainly a lot to it.
Yeah, and I think people looking at the marketplace sort of think, okay, well, it's a compounded medication because it's cheaper, but it's not. It's fulfilling a special need for something that may not be available from the established pharmaceutical companies, and that's no excuse to cut a corner. And so that's why what you're overseeing is so difficult, because I've toured this facility. You wouldn't see any different in a human compounding situation. That this is how high the standards are, and veterinary compounding is at the level that you would want human compounding to be in this facility.
Yeah, and so there was USP 800 came out. The USP requirements before 800 were all about patient safety. 800 was about worker safety. And so there was a lot of stuff, a lot of hoops that we had to jump through, a lot of modifications that we had to do to the building. And we were one of the first 5 in the country to get the USP 800 certification, not of just veterinary pharmacies, but of all pharmacies. So we were kind of out on the front of that, just because that was important to us, to keep not just the horses safe, but the people that work here safe as well.
Well, I mean, you're right. And again, it comes down to protecting the name, because it's associated with the clinic, and that's something we guard jealously.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot's been put into the brand, and, just a mistake here can have ramifications for the brand. So we're careful.
Yeah. So what do you think the future of compounding is? We know now that, again, we get medications in a form that we can't get, or there's maybe medications that we just not available on the market from any of the other usual providers. What's the future of compounding?
There's a lot that's changing. There's a lot of legislation and stuff that's happening that gets kicked around. I think the reality of it is we need compounded medications. You and I couldn't practice without them. There's a lot of, you talked about trying to do stuff just cheaper, right? Years ago, there was a lot of compounding pharmacies were compounding omeprazole, right? Which is there is a form that's on the market that does a really good job, and that was GastroGuard at the time, right? And so there was no reason to compound omeprazole in mass quantities other than just to do it cheaper, and we chose not to go there. Right, that's outside of the spirit of compounding, like I said. Now, do we compound omeprazole? Absolutely, and you use it, right? We use an injectable form. That's for horses that can't eat. So we do that every now and then, but it's in those very specific cases, and that's what compounding is for. I think that's going to stick around. Now, it's going to be interesting to see what legislation happens, and it obviously will be more difficult. But the changes that have been made so far, even though it's taken a lot and it's been expensive, they've been good changes, and I think rational minds will prevail.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point you brought up about the spirit of compounding, because if there's an FDA-approved product on the market for that indication, there shouldn't be a compounded medication competing with that. But what you're doing with compounding is, as say, you're looking to change the dose format or just provide things that otherwise can't be provided. And there's only one way to do that, and that's correctly.
Yep, that's right. And so that's one of our focuses, right? Make sure it's safe.
So what does the future hold for Bart Barber? You've had a pretty varied career. You started off, having a love of cattle and the farm life, and then your father wisely told you to leave the farm, and then
get out of here, boy.
Yeah, get out of here and see the world. And you've come here and you've moved through sort of like broodmare practice to sales practice, and you're managing the pharmacy, which is something we're all really grateful for. What does the future hold for you?
I have one of my 5 children at home still. The other 4 have graduated. Pretty much everybody's gone out west. I think eventually I'll go full circle and I'll be back on the banks of the Snake River. My wife and I have bought some property back home in Idaho, but it's a ways out. That we own the property there, but it's going to be a ways. So for me now, I'm focused on practice, doing a good job. I have some great yearling farms that I do the work on. Very proud of that, and I love working with the people. I love working with the horses still, and I have my son. I often say I've got 5 kids. They're all boys except 4. So he's the except 4, and over the next couple of years, I want to have a lot of fun with him.
Yeah, that's right.
And enjoy him and watch my kids grow. They're graduating college. That's probably one of my regrets. I had a couple of my kids that kind of hinted towards wanting to be veterinarians, and I didn't outright discourage it, but I didn't encourage it either. And that wasn't fair to them because it's a great career. And that suggestion was coming at a time when I was looking up and going, I think there's better ways. And that we've done a lot to change veterinary medicine and even equine medicine in Lexington, Kentucky. And it doesn't all have to be like this.
Yeah, that's true. But if they make their own minds up, it's their decision and not your fault, right?
That's right.
That's the burden of being dad.
That's right. And so, but a couple of my kids are nurses, and I'm proud of all of them. They got a school teacher and one that's a numbers kid and technology. And so we'll have to wait and see what the fifth does. But anyway, I had 3 weddings. 3 of my daughters got married in 7 months. That's a mother's nightmare.
Yeah, that's pretty efficient, Bart.
It wasn't me. Those girls and their mom pulled it off. I was impressed.
Yeah.
But.
Well, it sounds like you're lining yourself up for a Yellowstone type lifestyle at some point down the road.
Yeah. I know. My parents are still alive and healthy, and those are get back and be around my family. My dad was a big part of my life, and he's been a huge influence to me. And my mom, she encouraged me. I remember, one of the things that my mom told me when I was a little, I wasn't very old. She goes, you've got a great business mind. I go, I do, really. And so that's shaped me. So whether that's true or not, I believed it. And so that's part of why I became involved in the pharmacy. Why I got my MBA. It's just because somebody believed in me and told me that I was good at something. So I just want to be back around those, my family.
Yeah. Well, that's a good thing. Well, it's good to have this chat and see you on the other side of the table, Bart. I mean, I've heard things today I haven't heard before.
Yeah, it's awkward being over here, but I hope I didn't bore you to death.
No, that's fine. But again, we have to make eye contact, which is really awkward for both of us.
It is awkward for both of us. That's right.
Yeah. So save us now. And so that was Stallside for this week. We've been talking to my partner in crime, Dr. Bart Barber, about life, the universe, and everything. See you next time. Join us on Stallside next time for a trip down memory lane. We review our first 50 shows. Come along for the ride.